are really excited to have Jason Law, the co-founder of Mental Health Center of America, in studio with us. Jason, thank you so much for coming in to visit.
Thank you.
You have such an interesting story. You have an eclectic background. You were a firefighter, an entrepreneur. What brought you into the mental health space?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I think I reached a point in my life where I started to have some questions about my own mental health. I think up until that point, I had never thought about my mental health, maybe heard about it in, society, but for myself, I'd never reached a point where I needed to journey through that. A couple years ago, I reached that point where, I just didn't feel right. For me, it wasn't, anything major in the sense that, I needed to check myself in somewhere, but I definitely had some questions of, hey, I need to talk to a professional. And through that experience of looking for a professional and kind of guiding through my own mental health, started to have some ideas of how we can maybe innovate and create something for the mental health space in terms of a service that might be able to help people going through the similar experience I went through.
It's interesting. You mentioned that you were a firefighter. How long were you a firefighter for? About
7 years.
Okay, so I grew up in a family of firefighters, and there's a lot of trauma, believe it or not. Firefighters are the first to respond to a child drowning, and just responding to a child drowning really can cause detrimental mental health to the folks who are responding to those things. And I'm just curious, did that trauma build up over time with your work in the department?
Every first responder does. Police officers, firefighters, they're called to most people's worst moment of their life, and they're called as the person or persons to stabilize the situation. And with that comes a traumatic experience, and with that usually comes post-traumatic stress. And post-traumatic stress can be treated, but it also can be recognized typically by people that you're close to. But oftentimes, people are suffering from it and don't know where to turn, or they don't necessarily know what's happening. And for me, there was a lot of that happening. The post-traumatic stress, not just from the job, but from other life events.
Or even just afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
Totally.
So you identified it and you went beyond that.
I actually had a friend, and I think that's where typically most, for a lot of people, they have some friends around them that go, hey, you can go here, you can point here. I think that's part of what you guys are doing here with the story is not a lot of people know what resources are out there. So in my own journey, I didn't really know where to go, Well,
oftentimes with police and fire departments, it's male driven. And so sometimes a guy saying that, hey, listen, I'm not doing well mentally, it's a sign of weakness perception-wise, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're finally changing and turning the page in the conversation about mental health is the vulnerability, is understanding that vulnerability is a strength and that we can and we need to reach out for help when those trauma and those crises are happening.
Totally. I think, we're seeing with the younger generations, obviously mental health, that I would say there is no stigma with mental health. It's really, and now leading a mental health center, we don't see any stigma with the younger generation. It's the older generation, and surprising to us, the older generation is actually the kind of growing generation that we really didn't see coming to our mental health center. We knew we would get young people because young people are vulnerable, they're open. I think they're more in touch with their emotions than the older generation, and that's a strength of the younger. But to that, we're surprised to see how many, geriatric patient population we're getting that are struggling with grief from a loss of a loved one, depression, anxiety. These emotions have gone unnamed for years, and some of these are war veterans that have post-trauma stress from 30 years ago that are finally getting help because there's an easy, soft landing place to go and get help.
And post-pandemic, the isolation. Talk about Mental Health Center of America and what you're doing different.
Well, for one, we are a place that encapsulates, I think, all the different types of providers within mental health under one roof. So a simple center with all the modalities that regard mental health. So psychiatric, psychology, counseling, neurofeedback, med management, biomed. I mean, the list, there's 10 to 12 different therapies and modalities within one center. So that in and of itself is pretty different in the sense of in mental health right now, you don't really see that in outpatient. What you see in outpatient is individual services. You can go here for your counseling, you can go here for your med management, your psychiatry, you go here for your cold plunge or your cryotherapy. You go to these different places. We've kind of brought all of that under one roof, under one doctor's provision, and there's a treatment plan that is kind of webbed out from there for each patient, contextualized to their needs with all the services kind of wrapped around them. That in an outpatient setting in and of itself is a huge challenge. I mean, to be able to accept insurance, bring all those providers, recruit all those different providers, get them under one roof. But to us, we're not doing anything different in that space than the medical space has been doing it. Or in my background as a fire medic, we triage situations, we packaged up patients, we stabilized them, we brought them to a higher level of care to a hospital, and they were part of a treatment plan there. In mental health, we just aren't seeing that as in the same vein, meaning you go here for your counseling, you're not meeting with the doctor, you go here for your med management, maybe you have a psychiatrist, but you're not usually under one treatment plan.
And are you seeing that this is helpful? Because I think what happens a lot of times is when you're going to different people, you may be hearing different things. And someone who's struggling with mental health, you're trying to get a clear sense of, how do I get through this? How am I moving forward? And are you seeing that to be effective, that you guys are all on the same page? So you're saying, Brandon, this is what we see for you. These are what we're seeing as next best steps. Or Carey, this is what we'd like to see you do. Talk about the efficacy there.
Correct, yeah. There's an enormous amount of anxiety in a patient that's trying to journey through their own mental health, right? So to be able to go to a place where they can instantly, we would say, be stabilized, similar to a medic on a scene, where you're in a safe place, you've got all the providers here that can help you. So that's almost step one of like, you're okay, you've come to the right place. It's almost akin to cancer 30 years ago. You went to your primary doctor, maybe he was sending you out to different places versus you go to a treatment center where it's all under one roof, right? So that first kind of stabilization is kind of step one. Then from there, you're gonna get a working diagnosis, you'll get a treatment plan, you get a team wrapped around you. Your ability then to kind of work on your own mental health, all of your energy goes to that versus trying to navigate the system, navigate billing, navigate insurances, et cetera. It's the way I think it should be, which is why we kind of created it that way.
Can you just leave our audience with a few final words about what it has done for you personally to go enter in this space, to be solving problems, and hopefully to be helping people get right for themselves?
I like the challenge, and I like that it's matched with the opportunity of, you know, maybe changing systematically how mental health is addressed, but also helping hopefully thousands of people. Hopefully we can create a model that can be duplicated in other states and that can help thousands and thousands of people. Personally, that's exciting to be a part of it. It's tiring, but you know, it's what's energizing when I can look down the road, hopefully, and see that we've built something and really created a place for really good providers to aggregate, and for the general community, all walks of life, who are saying, hey, I just don't feel right, all the way to, dude, I think I need to check myself in, but I don't know if I need to. Mm-hmm. Where do I go? You know, there aren't a lot of places right now. We want to create that place that people can start or finish or be at any point in their journey.
Jason, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on, and we'd love to have you back again. Yeah. Thank you.